Hey, welcome to Guitar Knobs, the guitars, gear, noise, and nonsense podcast, hosted today by
Tony Dudzik, Pick Guardian,
Jared Brandon Wand, pickups.
Tony Dudzik. Where did the I'm trying to remember what the is from. It's from a movie thing. He says,
Drunk Uncle?
what? Hey, everybody, this is the Guitar Knobs. Welcome. This is Todd.
Who are you?
I'm Todd from the Guitar Knobs. I was thrown off by the Tony Dudzik. I can't. It's going to plague my mind.
It's a Monty Python
No, it's a movie. I can't think of it. Everybody out there is yelling at the car steering wheel. It's this movie, dummy. I'll remember it at like 3 a.m. and sit up straight in my bed and go, Dudzik. Anyways, hey.
That's what
back to the show here, everybody. Welcome to the Guitar Knobs. We're thrilled to death that you are here. We are excited about this show. I will tell you why. Well, because it has to do with something that the show is about. Tony, what's the show about?
This show is about boutique builders of amps, guitars, and pedals, and pedal boards, and pickups, and
all the things.
All the things, yes. Accessories, and such. And we like to talk to the builders of this boutique gear.
And find out about their whole story.
Let's get the whole story.
Yeah.
Nothing but the story.
That's right. We've got someone very special on the line who fits that bill. And you are, sir?
Alex from Science Amplification.
Did you do the thing just because Tony did it?
No, I was just calling
There we go.
Okay.
I mean, I do this all the time.
Yeah, right.
The show today is brought to you by
Alex Gaziano from Science Amplification. Welcome. We have had quite a few requests for you, sir.
Yep.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. It shouldn't be. You've got an awesome product. And we're going to dig into all of that.
We're going to dig
very
deep.
soon. Yes, we're going to find out all about the science. If you're following the bouncy ball wherever you are, you can head over to, where can they find you on Instagram, Alex?
Science Amps.
Perfect. And just out of curiosity, do you prefer Science Amps or Science Amplification?
No preference.
No preference. All
Science
right.
Amplification. Maybe it sounds fancier.
Yeah. That's a 25
Science
cent
Amps,
word.
Yeah, Amps is kind of clunky sounding, but it works good for an Instagram handle.
Yeah, true. All right. Everybody keep that in mind as you are thinking about these amps and looking at all these amps and all the things that are associated with these amps. And where can they go on the web to check out your website?
Scienceamps.com.
Perfect. All right.
So it sounds like you like to be referred to as Science Amps.
I guess so.
Yeah.
I guess guilty as charged.
All right. We want to say a couple big fat thank yous. Number one to Rode Mics for providing the Rodecaster Pro, our lovely
It's yummy.
mother device here. It's fantastic, and we love it, and we're so grateful to them for providing that to us. If you are thinking about starting a podcast, or if you're already running a podcast and want to make it way easier and more awesomer on yourself, check this out.
I don't believe awesomer is.
It is. It's in the Urban Dictionary for
awesome.
sure.
We'll take it.
Yep, I bet it is. And this is also great for recording, just home recording of your
perfect.
music and stuff. Which, if you're listening to the show, chances are you're playing that. So I'm just saying. We also need to say a big fat thanks for the Procaster mics. Good microphones. Yes, sir, they are.
Good cracker.
Yes, sir. Yeah. And the articulating armatures that are holding these mics to our table.
I like the big puffy windscreens.
And the big puffy windscreens they're nice because they also, keep your beard cheese off of it too.
And no popping.
No popping. Look, we can pop all day long and you don't even hear it. All right. And we want to thank music producer and recording engineer John Fintel for the support of our show. He's been a guest on our show and is a guitarist himself, so he knows how to get the tones you need. John produced my upcoming album right here at Relay Recording, and I am absolutely blown away by the results. He helped us through the whole process, from pre-production to recording and engineering to mixing and finally to mastering. And unlike others I have worked with, John was really attentive and provided lots of thoughtful input from over 20 years' experience. He will also provide his services off-site or remote. John will help you find the best way to tackle your recording project and bring your music to life. Check him out at johnfintel.com. That's JON FINTEL.com, and relayrecording.com. I also have a super fun, we like doing these, and these are the guest Four on the Floor. This is one from one of our grand poobahs. Woohoo! Yes, sir. Cody Lane gave us his Four on the Floor, and it is as follows. He plays some heavier stuff, so there's a lot of big words and like big adjectivated words in here. Dusky Electronics, the Octomotron Fuzz. See what I mean?
Yow.
Chris based this on a 60s octave up fuzz. The Octomotron brings modern improvements like a high impedance input buffer, allowing it to play nicely with other pedals like the Dusky Hypatia Fuzz Distortion. All right.
That's a mouthful.
I said it. That's the first time. I didn't even edit that. It's amazing. Next is the Frost Giant Electronics Saint of Sufferance. Roar. Fuzz. There is no ordinary fuzz by Eric Calvert. This one can bathe listeners in a total sonic wall of terror. Think of it as a hybrid of the Frost Giant flagship fuzz Massif and the Tonebender MK2 pushed to devastating fuzz limits. And for those who want to pull in a vintage sputter, there's a bias knob too. How about that? We also have the Empress Effects Compressor MK2. The Empress, now I just threw in a "the" for no reason. Empress listened to the fans and transformed their original large profile pedal into one pedal footprint, top jack enclosure, and added tone control, high pass filter, and gain reduction input level LED meters. That sounds like a manual. This is the only compressor you'll ever need, and maybe even your only boost too. And you get a free set of Ginsu knives with it. Just kidding, you don't. I get all the control I need for my levels and tone. And finally, the GFI Systems Specular Reverb V3. This little box packs 7 mind-melting, beautiful algorithms, of which you can tweak to save into 8 presets. I was in love the moment I hit the bypass switch, and I now understand why the big brother Specular Tempus reverb and delay can go head-to-head with the Empress reverb. Everyone needs to keep an eye out for whatever Harry Woodidja does next. I'm pretty sure I messed that part up. It was an honor to meet him one-on-one. I'm assuming at NAMM. Cody, thank you so much for supplying that and for being such an
enthusiast.
Is such an enthusiastic supporter of our show. We really, really appreciate you. So if you're interested in any of those and you need to know more, heck, hit up Cody. I don't think he'd mind, but maybe he would. And if he does, I'm sorry.
Now, does he realize that he has the perfect name for a Beatles cover band?
I'm pretty sure that's...
You think so?
I'm pretty sure he's heard that before.
Well, just in
so
case he hasn't.
So don't do it.
Do it.
Tony,
do it.
We can't afford that.
What?
You can't even hum a bar off that. We can't do it. Anyways, all right. So that was pretty fun, right?
I have a lot of money. I can afford it. I'm going to hum it.
We need to start hearing from our pal on the phone, Alex, and we're going to talk right now about this week. What happened in our music worlds this week? We're going to start off with Tony leading the dance, and then head on over to Alex.
I didn't realize it was a dance. Otherwise, I would have brought my dancing
Shut
shoes.
it.
So this week, my good friend Jared over here, a couple of episodes ago, we talked about a Kent hollow body Japanese-made guitar that I picked up at a show. That the bridge pickup was blown, and Jared, with his maniacal methodology, managed to jam a mini humbucker underneath the cover of this pickup.
Oh my!
Yep.
So it sounds great, and it's quiet.
Yep.
And when you compare it to the neck pickup, which is still a single coil, I mean it's maybe probably part of it's because of the position. It's brighter, but it is. It's just so much better sounding when it's quiet because the neck pickup is kind of.
Oh sure. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of those guitars of that era were. They were just made for the mass market. I think this is like a 65, and I think they were made by Gaiatone.
Those are really, really, really crude pickups, man. Really crude.
Well, that's a when we excuse me.
Yeah, that's
when
okay. I'll edit that out.
When
With
we
Jared's, that's going to happen for sure. Go ahead.
when we I mean, basically these mount and you pull the cover off. It's like spring loaded kind of, and there's just a coil sitting wrapped around a magnet
And tape or some sort of paper.
Oh yeah, it was very crude, but
It's very crude.
But this is much better now. So
Good.
and I also thank Jared for putting a black and a white lead on the thing,
Right.
because I did had a of course, you know, it's always a 50-50 chance, although when I'm doing guitar wiring,
never right
it's
the first time.
100% chance that
Right.
I will get it wrong.
Right.
So you have to flip the two leads around, but it worked out great. So thanks, Jared.
You're
Awesome.
welcome.
Well done. Alex, what's going on in your music world this week?
Hey, yeah, I've been real busy this week. I got to do something I haven't done in a couple years, which is track guitars with my band for recording.
Nice.
So that was really fun.
What's your band called?
Dream Decay.
Dream Decay. Can people listen to it on the interwebs and stuff?
Yeah, you could listen to it on Spotify or any of those Bandcamp
Awesome.
and stuff.
Cool.
Yeah. So we have a new album, so I got to actually be a guitar player, not just an amp tester,
Sweet.
which is nice.
What
So
kind
that's
of
how I
get-
got into
Well,
all
we're
this.
going to get into that later, Tony.
Oh, I want to ask him now.
No, don't ask him now.
I want to ask him
No,
now.
You're going to blow our... Yeah.
Todd, you're
Sorry.
such a control.
I know. It's for good reason.
Everybody knows that.
Back to you, Alex.
Yeah, so that was fun. We just did it at my bandmate's place, so plenty of time to just play around with pedals and different guitars and amps, of course, and everything. And so that was cool. I've been we're gonna go on tour at the beginning of March, so I've just been building a bunch of amps, trying to get everything in order before I leave. And I'm gonna do. I have a new amp. It's the Mark III version of an amp called the Mother that I've been making since about 2012, and this is the third iteration of it. And I'm going to be filming a demo video with a friend this Saturday, so I'm excited to do that
Oh,
because
that's cool.
I really
Nice.
that's been something I've been learning how to do, is like edit video and stuff. So I'm going to hopefully have more videos soon. It's something that I've been meaning to do for the last 10 years, and
Yeah.
just finally getting around to it.
Very cool. Very cool. Very hot.
Yeah,
Very hot.
that's about it for me.
Jared.
So, this week I got in a project for work for pickups and stuff, and it wasn't just to repair the pickups. A really great customer of mine, he has a repair shop in Florida, and he sent me this 1962 pick guard for a Jazzmaster, and it's, it has all the original components on it. So I'm like, he's like, I don't know what to do with this thing. There's just wires all over the place, and it's not working right. And so I get it, and there's a lot of there's this copper, some exposed copper, and then some jacket around the copper, insulation around the copper, and it's just wrapped around all these parts all over the place on this pick guard. And I don't know why, so I get rid of all this stuff, and then I get a wiring diagram out, a traditional, and I check all the components. And lo and behold, and it's not working right. And I'm wondering, why are these pots not soldered on the back? Why aren't grounds hooked up to these pots? And then why isn't there any even solder on the ground lug on the input jack?
Because it's
I know why.
Okay.
And it took me a while to find out, and I was banging my head against the wall. So apparently, here's probably what happened. Our guess is that pickguard gassed out, it shrunk, and the metal part underneath didn't work anymore. Didn't fit that pickguard any longer.
so somebody took it off.
So that somebody took it off, and then they had to ground everything together. So when I took all that ground off, it never worked right after that either. So what I had to do is I had to order a shielding plate, and I got to tell you, man, this thing is so it's just shaped really funny the way it's shrunk and moved after the years. I think you can shed some more light on it.
Yeah, I mean, if you ever run into something like that, you could just put a piece of shielding tape in the control area, either copper, which is really I prefer to use copper shielding when I can, but aluminum shielding tape works just as fine, and that gives you the common ground. But yeah, that's because the original guards had a metal shield.
Yeah.
Aluminum. Yeah. If anyone's had a vintage Fender, they know what we're talking about.
And I mean, these components on here are worth a lot of money. If you were to try to source them out on eBay,
Yeah.
people, of course, it's not really worth that much, but the market
What year
is.
did you say it was?
It is a 62.
Okay.
So yeah, what I did was because it's a 62 and it's still pretty much original, minus the new solder blobs that I put on it, I am going to use the aluminum shield, and I'm going to probably have to, modify that to fit the guard properly.
Let's just, for anybody that may be new to this, can we just explain shielding really quick and what we're talking about, like shielding tape and et cetera? Tony?
So, I mean, you shield electrical components, especially passive components, and also preamplified components, active components, to prevent radio frequency interference. It also helps, if with a common ground, helps eliminate some extra humming and buzzing and all kinds of weird noise
and
stuff.
that's what the shielding was used for this particular pick guard, was the common ground.
So if you are looking at the back of your pick guard and there's like what looks like aluminum tape or copper tape,
Right.
or the cavity of a guitar that you bought used or something has copper or aluminum tape on the inside, and sometimes it's even sprayed with the black shielding
conductive paint
stuff. That's what that's for.
Right, and what Jared is talking about, a lot of Fenders of that era had an actual separate aluminum, very thin piece of aluminum, kind of
Right.
shaped like the pick guard, that sat behind the pick guard and became the common ground.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, interesting stuff. Really,
Very super interesting.
really interesting stuff, guys. super. Hey, speaking of pick guards and grounding and all that stuff, I want to share a little tip that I've used over the years, which has come in very handy, especially in gigging. I first encountered this problem with the Telecaster that I had, and I was getting this noise, and I just couldn't get rid of it. I shielded the whole inside of everything. I shielded the pick guard. I shielded the heck out of everything. It was like, short of putting on an aluminum hat myself, I couldn't get rid of this noise.
Now that I'd like to see.
Yeah. And the thing that fixed it, and now I still carry this around in a little baggie in my gig bag, is a dryer sheet. So you just take that little dryer sheet and you give it a little tiny rub on the pick guard, and the noise goes away.
Sometimes.
It's held static, and it, like, you wipe it on, it's gone.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that you don't, I'm not saying that would get rid of a improper ground or something like that, but in my case, it was holding static charge. And then when I wipe the dryer sheet,
You must have
gone.
polished it too much.
What?
Over polishing causes static electricity.
Well, if you're
buildup.
playing and you're constantly hitting it and you're standing on carpet or something, right? That's just so you're practicing at home and you put the guitar on and it's still going to hold that charge. Just
Okay.
kidding.
All right.
So, not just kidding, but I don't know why I said
How
that.
about you, Todd? What's going on in your
Well,
world this
anyways,
week?
nothing about dryer sheets, but hey, trust me, if you don't believe me, try it yourself. So there.
I like dryer sheets.
Yeah, I don't, not on clothes, but that's a whole different thing. So for me, I mentioned that we just recently finished our album, and the tone that we got on this album is something that I've coveted for a long, long time. I'm so utterly thrilled to death with how the guitar sounds on this. It makes me weep, and I wanted to make sure, like, after we did this, that I changed my live sound to get as close to that as possible because we did a lot of tweaking and stuff. And John Finnell, who's been on the show before, we've referenced him several times. He's the one who recorded us. Absolutely fantastic, and just did an amazing job. And so he said, "Well, let's see. Why don't we try a couple combinations?" And he gave me when I was recording, we swapped out a couple pedals, and he said, "I want to hear what this sounds like through your amp." And it was the Cattle and Bread Dirty Little Secret, which is, loosely termed, Marshall in a box kind of thing. But I put that in, and I was like, okay, I dig. And then I paired that up with the Audio Electronics Experiments Halberd, and it is like money.
So you ran one into the other?
Halberd
Wow.
Halberd into the Cattle and Bread, and in between I have the EP boost just to kind of go for a little solo, lift.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked on how it sounds.
Lots of pedals.
So we're gonna check that out. I'm gonna pull it in here and see like how close it sounds to what the album's doing. So
Nice.
yeah, kind of fun. But I've got like a whole bunch of pedals on the floor. I've been trying all different kinds of combinations, and what if you take one, put one in front of the other, and then what happens if you swap those and it sounds like garbage, and you swap them back, and what if I slap this one in front of the other? So
Sounds
it's been
like
really
you need
fun.
a Science Amplification amp.
a pedal platform with massive headroom, like massive headroom. Yeah. So anyway, that was what I did. Lottie-dottie-dottie.
Well.
Yeah.
And
We'd still love to get Cattle and Bread on. We've talked to him a couple times, but sometime in the future maybe.
You never know.
Yeah. Oh wow! Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
4 on the floor.
That's my drop for the 4 on the floor for you, my friend. Woo-hoo! Are you ready?
I'm ready. Me? Yeah, I'm ready.
Good. Just check and make sure your mouth still works because we've been talking so much.
I know. I won't kick my microphone stand again. I just
We didn't even hear that.
Yeah.
All right. So the big thing is here, give as much detail as you possibly can. We want to hear all the gory details, where you got it, when you got it, why you got it, what inspired you to get it.
If you stubbed your
all
toe
that
on
stuff.
it or any of that.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Okay, let me clap you back in an intro. Here we go. All right. Alex Gaziano from Science Amplification, the 25-cent word. All right. Give us your 4 on the floor.
All right. Cool. Yeah, it was cool to hear Cody's. He's a customer, a friend of mine, so that was helpful. So, all right. I kind of picked the pedals that I actually use live because those really are the ones I know the most about, are kind of nearest and dearest to me. Some are exotic, pun intended, and some are a little bit more utilitarian ones. So the first one is an exotic AC booster, and to my knowledge, it's some kind of variation off a tube screamer, but typical tube screamers and clones, they have that mid hump where you can get really used to, and they have a nice kind of like kind of softer attack to them, but
Right.
they cut treble and bass, which can be really good for certain things like boosting a high gain amp, or just if you have a really scooped kind of Fendery amp, it can kind of
Help that.
that's kind of if it's kind of a bright, bassy, clean sound, and then but I like
It's
the
like
AC
a tennis
booster.
ball on an ice pick.
Right. Exactly. That's actually a really good metaphor. I like the AC booster. I switched from a tube screamer to an AC booster because it has this really nice treble and bass control that's just tuned to like really musical frequencies, I guess you could say.
Uh-huh.
And they have a really wide range, and it has a little bit more gain and volume on tap. So to me, it's just kind of like a perfect tube screamer. And it's not so, I do sometimes like transparent overdrives, but sometimes they're just like too transparent. And this one kind of colors the sound in a pleasant way. I play with single coils a lot in my band, and this kind of like fills them in a little bit. when I hit it.
Awesome.
So that'd be my first one.
Awesome. Do you know what the AC stands
Keep
for?
going.
I don't know what it stands for.
I think it's supposed to be something like a Vox AC30 or AC15.
Okay.
But I don't know why that is. I'm pretty sure it's a Tube Screamer variant.
Okay.
Because
Cool.
with the control, the EQ in the center, it pretty much sounds like a Tube Screamer to me.
Gotcha.
I haven't really looked at the schematics or anything like that, but
Well, those exotic pedals, man. It's probably the one pedal that everybody's like, I don't know how to explain this. Like across the board, like all of them, they're just like, it's just really good. I don't know exactly why or how, and they're built like tanks too, which is really cool because a lot of those mini pedals are not, but those ones definitely are.
right. Yeah. My next one is kind of a more plain pedal, but it has one really interesting feature. It's a Boss DD6. Have you guys ever used one of those?
I have not personally, no.
So it's a delay.
It's just your
delay.
yeah. It's just a delay,
Okay.
not the DD3. That one's super popular. The DD7, or now I think they have a newer one, but the DD6 has this special feature called warp, where it's when you hold down the switch, it oscillates, which a lot of boutique pedals do, but I've tried a lot of them and they don't ramp up the same way this one does. So basically when you hold it, it's like turning the feedback all the way up. But this one ramps in a really kind of quick, aggressive way. And it also, when you let go of it, it tapers off in a really cool way. And so I don't particularly love the delay sound on it. It's just a really clean digital delay, but I pretty much just use it for this warp effect for like noise stuff and to kind of like create drones and things like that.
That's cool. I like that.
I've just been using it for years.
Huh.
Yeah, it's really, really cool for like noise stuff. It's kind of my secret weapon. And I'm like, on the last tour I was on, our entire van and all of our equipment got stolen on the first, before the first night of a month-long tour. That's a long story.
Oh my gosh.
But
God.
we were pretty screwed without this DD6. Of all the things, like we eventually got 2 DD6s from Craigslist, like along the tour. We found one in like Chicago and one in like Oklahoma or something. It was kind of funny.
Wow.
Buying them from people and telling them that, our stuff was stolen. We're so happy to get these DD6 pedals back because of the warp thing. And
So have you bought a few of them just in case?
I know I should stock up, but the thing is they're pretty common and a lot of people don't really like them that much. They don't have tap tempo. They don't have, and it's they're pretty boring except for this warp thing. And they've incorporated onto some newer Boss pedals like the DD500, but it still doesn't work the same as this one. This one's cool too because you can have it off, and when you step down on it, you can turn on the pedal and warp at the same time, so you don't have to hit 2 different switches.
Oh, haha. I like that.
And it's a Boss
I
pedal,
might have
so
to
you
try
can really
this.
just stand on it. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. So I'm kind of a Boss fanboy. So let's see, but I don't have any other Boss pedals on this list. The next one would be Caroline Shigeharu Fuzz.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really cool fuzz. I was using a Rat for a long time, and I really liked the mid-range of it. And I kept trying to find a distortion pedal that was equally as mid-rangey, but maybe a little less like compressed and a little more on the fuzz side of it, like a little more screwed up sounding.
That's the way that I like it. Yeah. So we've talked about that many times. Like, I think you're probably chasing a similar sound. We are chasing similar sounds.
Yeah. And it's funny in general because I'm like an amp person and I spend most of my days like tweaking overdrive and distortion sounds in my amps. But when I joined this band where I use all these pedals, they were already using pedals, and I hadn't used that many pedals in a band before. So, but this was like 8 years ago. But I've now I'm like, it's been cool for me to like, try all these pedals and find different tones. And these are like tones. I don't ever really care for pedals that try to sound like amps.
Mm-hmm.
Just for me, I just can't really, it never really sounds like an amp to me. And I just figure, why don't you just turn up the amp?
Right.
But, so I'm kind of more interested in like more fuzz sounds, I guess, or real extreme sounds that you couldn't get out of an amp.
Interesting. Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That pedal is really cool. It has a really cool octave function, and actually, John from you mentioned him, Electronic Audio Experiments. He
Drink.
helped with that one.
Yeah.
Believe
John
it,
Snyder.
with that
Drink.
one. Yeah, actually, last time I was in Boston on tour, he met up with me and took me out for a drink. And he gave me a you mentioned it. He gave me a Halberd prototype
Really?
Oh, that's
because
cool.
he'd heard all our stuff got stolen. So he was really sweet and he gave that to me.
Oh, wow. That's
And,
very cool.
I use that a lot too. So that'll be my like extra,
Nice.
my 5/5
Yeah.
on the floor.
It's
All
a great
right.
pedal.
If
It's a
there's
great
any
pedal.
of our listeners out there and you see John Schneider, buy him a drink.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah,
It's very
he's great.
kind.
Um, let's see. The other two are kind of, one's really utilitarian. It's a Sonic Research Turbo Tuner. Does anyone ever mention tuners?
Occasionally,
You guys are so bored.
We try to dissuade from the tunerage.
All right, but this tuner is badass.
All right.
All right, okay.
You can slide that one in. Let's do it.
Here's the thing with the tuner. If you're not in tune, none of these pedals sound good.
True.
And it's cool because you can intonate your guitar with it, but it's small. I like how it kind of looks like it gives you that same feeling like when you find a real old website that you can tell hasn't been updated in a long time. Kind of look. It doesn't like look. It looks kind of bad, but it
Right.
works so well.
Okay.
I love the.
You're
turbo
really
tuner.
selling this thing, let me tell you.
So how does it sound?
It does exactly what it needs to do. It's actually true bypass. Sometimes I wish it was buffered, but it's not.
Oh, now,
Um,
why did you choose that one? I mean, of all the tuners you have available to you.
Well, I had a TU2, a Boss, like since I was 14. I had it for, I don't know, 15 years or something.
Uh-huh.
And it's actually still works. It actually still works, but I don't know. I got the itch to get a new tuner. And
it doesn't have the best eyeball to floor kind of help in my
the turbo tuner.
no, the Boss, the TU2.
Oh yeah,
I
it
need a
doesn't.
better
And
readout.
the turbo tuner doesn't either. It's kind of challenging sometimes, but I like it for that reason. It frustrates my bandmates, but I like it. But yeah, I don't know. I just read about it. I wanted to have a tuner that I could intonate my guitars with.
Uh-huh. All
And
right.
this one was like really accurate.
Cool.
Sorry,
All
that
right.
was a boring one.
No,
I
that's
can do a
okay.
different one instead.
It is okay. The rest of your stuff is not.
Okay, I got a
work
really nerdy one, but it may be interesting to nerdy amp people.
Okay. It's a pedal.
It's a pedal.
Okay.
It's technically a pedal.
All right.
It's a radial tone bone head bone. Do you guys know what this is?
Well, I know what a radial tone bone. That's like an ABY kind of box, right?
Okay, yeah, right. So this one's called the head bone. This one allows you to switch two heads through the same cabinet,
Oh.
which can be cool if you're for live use. If you're like you want to use two different amp heads, one for your clean and one for your distorted sound, for example.
Right. So if you want to use a pushed amp versus, and maybe you don't have a channel selector.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
very
You could use
specific
two
use.
single channel amps. You
Yeah.
could use two single channel amps through the same cabinet, so you don't have to have two cabinets either.
That's cool.
And it's safe to use. Yeah. I use this thing constantly. I do it when I show people amps of mine in the shop to compare different amps to each other.
Yeah.
so you can hear them in real time, so you don't have to unplug everything. And because even you can't seem to remember what anything sounds like unless you hear it back to back.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Is there any kind of
So,
lag or anything
I've done
on
this-
those?
Oh, there's a slight. No, not really. Not really.
Just don't do it
perceivable.
mid solo, right?
Yeah, I think there's a tiny dropout, and they do that to mute any popping sound that might happen otherwise.
Right.
But it's been really cool for me because I use it in the shop all the time to compare my amps with vintage amps or different amps to each other, so I can really, really like hear the differences between things.
Yeah.
So that's a pedal that I could not live without, probably more than any of the other pedals. I use
Okay.
it.
Well, how about we swap that one with that delicious
Instead of
tuner
the
that you
tuner.
put in?
The tuner, I know. I thought I was being funny with the tuner.
Not funny at all.
We'll leave it on the
trying to be
podcast,
different.
but on the blog, we'll keep it to the 4.
How many watts can that the radial pedal handle?
I've killed one of them before, actually. It says 100, but it has this feature when it starts to smell bad, that's you turn it off. Turn off the amps. That's what I found.
Smell-o-vision.
Yes.
I've fixed one before, and then I killed another one, and
Oh man.
yeah, I have a little collection.
We
Broken ones.
just had a similar thing happen here at we were messing around with this head, and I was John Fennell and I were messing around with this head in here, just playing it, trying to check it out and test it and stuff, and we both kind of looked at each other and we both got real close to it and started sniffing it, and we looked at each other and we're like, yeah, turn it off, turn it off, turn it off, turn it off. It did not smell natural at all.
That reminds me of the old days of the Tom Scholl's Power Soaks? Is that what they were called? Power Soaks?
Oh yeah,
a
I
little-
know Marshall had a power break, but the power soak. Okay.
Yeah, the Power Soak I think was loaded with all these wire round resistors and things like that
Right.
to give you a speaker load, and you could turn it down. But inevitably, they got hot, and you could just smell them eventually start to burn.
Right. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, that was a fun 4 on the floor. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Sure.
Maybe not. Yeah, they're pretty like straightforward. But if you got a nice amp, behind
Well,
then-
the DD6 is something that we haven't heard of.
yeah,
or
I'm
played
actually
around with.
see, and you kind of hit on something. I typically don't use effects pedals like through an entire song. I stab in for like a little bit and I use it here and there. So what you were saying actually I could totally use something like that. I don't need an always on thing that does that, and I think a
Right.
lot of the boutique versions, they're kind of made for like noise rock where you're like really leaning on that. But the nice thing is with that Boss, it's not going to, it's not going to break the bank to get that,
No.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very helpful. All right. Well, we are gathered here today to learn about science amps, science amplification,
If you will.
if you want to formalize it, and Alex Gaziano, the builder behind Science Amps and the brand. I've had a cold, so I got
He's got his smooth jazz voice going today. How
Hello,
about
this
that?
is George Tokai. Anyways, all right, Alex. First of all, let's just get this out of the way. What kind of gear are you playing? Because we want to know.
Well, yeah. Currently, in my band, I play a Jazzmaster with Lawler pickups. It's actually just a Squier. This was my replacement guitar after mine got stolen. It's a Squier, one of the new classic vibes,
Oh yeah.
and I really like it a lot. I'm embarrassed how much I like it. It has like skinny tall frets, and I put Lawler pickups in it, and I have a few buddies that work down there in Tacoma and stuff, and I just love those pickups. And so that's what I'm using for
What color
a
is it?
guitar. It's a sonic blue, but it's a pretty cool. I usually don't like light blue guitars, but it's so light, it's almost imperceivably blue. Like you don't can't tell it's blue until it's next to white. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay. I gotcha.
Yeah, the first, I mean,
Such a light blue.
that Squire line has really come a long way. I mean, the first Jazz Master that I was really impressed with was the Squire J. Mascis.
Oh, yeah.
Jazz
Yeah,
Master.
I've
That is
had
a
one too,
solid
yeah.
guitar.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool.
They seem
And,
to go bigger on the offset stuff with the Squires. I don't know, like the Squire line seems to be better there than elsewhere.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
And I just got isn't one of you guys likes Japanese guitars? Maybe all.
Yeah, that's me.
Tony does. Tony
I
does.
just got I've been trying to play this one in the band a little bit, but it doesn't have a tremolo, and I've been trying to figure out how to get one on there. It's a Greco copy of a Rickenbacker.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that sounds fun.
I'm not sure which one. It's a 3-pick. It's like the John Lennon model, but it has a longer neck. It doesn't have that really
So
short
it's full.
neck.
Yeah, it's like a 350 scale.
Yeah,
line.
350, and it has 3 pickups.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
it's really cool guitar.
The one way to do it would have been to do what John did with his and put a Bigsby on it.
Yeah, I got to try some more Bigsby's. I've never really gotten along with one. They don't. I'm just so used to the Jazz Master one. It's just like
it's a totally different feel. I mean, the Jazz Master and Jaguar trems are a lot. I want to say they're more touch sensitive, maybe when they're set upright with the spring, whereas the
Right.
Bigsby is pretty much. I mean, you can't. I mean, it's really good at just little, warbly kind of.
Yeah, it's more subtle. And
Yeah.
you can't strum with one. That's my problem. Unless you have a Chet Atkins arm. I don't know if you guys have seen that.
Yeah, I have seen those.
But I've never tried it, and they look funny on some guitars. I don't know.
yeah.
Might look cool on there.
But but Rickenbackers would have come with they had one that was similar to like a Maestro, and then that
Right.
was originally on John's guitar, and it was. I'll just say that Maestros are not known for their longevity on most guitars. A lot of people just take
Stability,
them off,
yeah.
and they move on to other things.
Right.
In this case, it was
Right.
a Bigsby, but I'm trying to think. There's probably some other good options out there. Duesenberg makes a good trem option.
Yeah, I've been looking around
Is that the one that Nutter
to
uses?
see.
I think
might
so,
maybe
yeah.
I'll just try to write some songs without it.
I think I saw those in NAMM. They're really nice.
Yeah.
Well,
So
or
there
just
you go.
Shake your guitar and bend the
Well,
neck.
that's a cool thing. So,
Yeah,
is it
that's kind of more interesting guitar.
is it a set neck or is it a bolt on?
It's a set neck.
Okay, cool. Because they made them both ways.
Yeah.
But if it's a Japanese one, that's a really good version. They make a
Yeah.
lot of them in Korea now.
Right. Yeah, I have a couple Japanese Les Pauls too. I have a bunch of guitars just that I use for amp testing, because all my customers have different guitars and pickups. So I want to make sure that my amps sound good with everything from a Strat to a down-tuned Les Paul with EMGs or whatever. I have all sorts of guitars. It's a good excuse to buy guitars. for
Yeah,
sure.
it's a tax write-off.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so but yeah, as far as the one that I actually play the most, it's the Jazz Master. And then my pedal board is pretty much kind of the pedals that I like. I really use the Shigeharu Fuzz a lot, the AC booster delay, and I use a Boss GD500 delay too for like a tape echo. And I think my friend
is your band
from-
really heavy?
It's kind of more like a post-punk band,
Okay.
noise rock band. We have some kind of like kraut rock influences and stuff.
Okay.
What kind of
Yeah.
amps are you using? Marshalls, Fenders.
Yeah. Yeah. So so I'm using a Science amp. I'm using this model I make called the Street Sweeper, and that one it does get some overdrive, and my clean sound with it is kind of dirtier, but it's more of a cleaner amp with reverb. It's kind of special feature. It has two reverb. It's a real spring reverb and everything, but you can switch between two reverb settings that each have their own level, and I call it a color control. It's like a tone control just for the reverb. kind of like the old 6G15 Fender reverb units had, the ones that
Right.
you would like set on top of your amp.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
So you can have a dry sound, obviously, or switch between two reverb sounds. And yeah, that amp is kind of more in the like Fendery or Dumble kind of range.
I was really
guess. Yeah,
I
it's
was really
kind of
hoping you were gonna
cleaner.
say Kemper, but
Kemper. It's modeled.
I use a Kemper.
I based it off of a Kemper profile.
It's based on
Of
a
a
crate.
Dumble.
Yeah.
Some crates are pretty good. Mike Soldano designed a crate. Can't remember which one. Palomino or something.
Oh, really?
They're not made well though. They kind
Yeah.
of they kind of break down.
I
a
still
lot.
love. I love the original ones that have. They're actually the casings are
Those
made out of
I see
wood.
those pop up on Craigslist all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So okay, well that's cool. Now we have an understanding of like what you're doing with your own guitars and what kind of gear you like and stuff like that. Now let's get into your bread and butter, which are the Science amps. They are pretty recognizable, which is good. So you did a good job on that. And everybody, as soon as you see it, you're like, I know exactly what that
Says
is.
science on it.
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
I tried to make it really
It's a
vague.
beautiful amp. I mean, it really is. And you really are, you make heads. You're not doing combos and all
Yes.
that stuff.
I did make one combo for a while, but I discontinued it. I think I'm going to make a new combo actually this year. That's one thing.
Oh,
I'm
really?
planning on doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Is it safe to say
It's
that
like
you...
a 50 watt. It's like it'll be more of a pedal platform thing, like a 50 channel, a 50 watt single channel 112. And then there'll be a 50 channel version too.
Right.
Excellent.
Awesome.
There we go.
Lots of
I'm
patch
holding out
cables.
for the 100 channel version.
Yeah.
100 channel. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the Tone Bone Head Bone Deluxe.
Well.
That's what you could use that for.
So how did you get? What was your first amp that you built? I mean, is it in the line now, or is it something different?
The very first amp I built was I got a very short apprenticeship with a local amp builder in Olympia, Washington, Dale Murrow, who has a little company called Old School Amps. And I just cold called him and asked him if I could, maybe he could show me some stuff. I wanted to learn how to fix my own amps, but yeah, he showed me some stuff. And then the first amp I ended up, he said, if you really want to get into this, you kind of just got to build something and then kind of, go from there. So I built, he had a version of a Tweed Princeton, which is just a little single-ended amp with a volume and a tone control. It's kind of like most people build that or something like it, like a Champ or something for their first amp, and I built that. And that was cool, and I learned a lot from that. But then, I was playing in bands and stuff. I wanted to build something loud I could actually play. So the next amp I built was something more like a JTM 45, like a 50 watt flexi kind of amp.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the test bed for my first original designs. And the first model I came out was called the Hellhawk, and I still make a version of that. And it does still have Marshall-y roots for sure. So it goes back all the way back to that one.
And these are all point-to-point wiring, no boards, right?
I do use circuit boards actually.
Oh, you do?
That's something I switched in 2017. I was making boards from scratch in a more of a hobbyist kind of fashion using this Garolite material. It's the same material that they make printed circuit boards out of, but they were really labor intensive, and there's some problems with doing them that way because if you want to do channel switching and use DC heaters, which are a lot quieter, and a lot of modern components, which are a lot higher quality, you can't really use in a hand-wired amp reliably because they're just not meant to be mounted to turrets or
Right.
eyelets like the old Fenders and Marshalls. So you kind of compromise some reliability by it seemed counterintuitive because people associate kind of maybe not so much anymore with all the pedals and everything. People are a little. What I've noticed over the last decade is printed circuit boards are definitely less taboo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a whole show about that,
Or
actually.
stigmatized. Yeah, it's interesting. There's guys like Steve Fryette or Andy Marshall from THD who from the beginning have been saying there's nothing wrong with circuit boards. Like they're actually more consistent. They can be just as or more reliable than doing it all hand wired. It just depends on how you do it.
Right.
And I've really found that to be true. So I use really thick circuit boards with really extra heavy traces with tons of standoffs so they don't flex at all. And I still keep all the pots and the tube sockets chassis mounted so they're easy to repair, and it's just like a little more rugged that way.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So and a lot of like Soldanos, those have always been circuit boards, and a lot of old amps have stood the test of time.
Oh yeah, I mean Boogies,
But,
they came out of the gate, with their original line, the Mark Ones.
Yeah, and those circuit boards are really primitive compared to what you can do now. So, and yeah, those ones are still around. Sorry, I went off on a tangent about the circuit board.
No,
No,
that was my question to you. And I agree with you. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think from from a repair standpoint, I think the point-to-points are a little bit easier, but that's assuming that you're going to blow an amp up or that sort of thing, or at least the componentry inside there. I mean, 9 times out of 10, it's a tube or a transformer.
Yeah, totally. Right. Yeah. Totally. It just totally depends. Sometimes the circuit board amps are easier to repair if they're designed to be repaired. A lot of times they're not. They're just designed to assemble as fast as possible.
Right.
That's what Rob from
nightmare. Yeah.
Mad Cow often like whenever if you go to Instagram and check out his channel, Mad Cow Amplification, most of the ones that he has the most complaints about are I guess you could say consumer grade or economy level amps that are on boards, but they're, to your point, they're not meant for that kind of easy repair. Okay, so back to your amps. When you started out with that, and you hit the Hellhawk.
Hellhawk, yeah.
At what point did you hit sort of like the stride of where your own true design started coming out?
I don't know, because all my amps. So I've noticed something interesting where all my amps are. I tried to make all my models different for different people who have different. I mean, they're all pretty loud, but for people who have different tonal goals. And
Right.
play different genres and different things, but I've kind of noticed that all my amps do share some similar voicing to them, and it's nothing I really set out to do, but I think even just from the first amp, I've just just voicing, when you're voicing the amps by ear, you just kind of have certain tendencies towards certain tonal qualities, I guess, and
Right.
so I kind of just I got some good advice early on to kind of just trust your ears,
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I've been doing, because I have all, to a certain extent, all amps in general, but all my amps are have their DNA in some vintage amps, whether it's a high watt or a bad amp or a Marshall or whatever. But and then I just kind of usually use that as a starting place and go from there, whether it's So one thing that's always been important to me is like having useful features on the amp, like not too many bells and whistles, but things that are really usable and not too confusing for people, especially nowadays when you have so many, a lot of people have so many pedals too. That's just like they get option paralysis.
Yeah, that we're like, I'm never gonna use all this. What is it for? Am I using it wrong if I don't use it? Really quick, I want to do just a quick association. If you could give us, I'm going to run through your models real quick, and if you could just give sort of, just so people have an understanding of like, I think you've used the term a couple times, and I like the term for this, color. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if you can give just a color association with each of these. So Hellhawk.
Like literally a color?
No. Sorry.
Oh.
Yes.
It's not Jimmy Kimmel. We're not going to do that.
Blue.
He's so funny, though. He's so cute. All right. Hellhawk.
Hellhawk is kind of it's more. Can I use other?
Oh,
amps?
absolutely. Yes.
Okay, this one's more plexi-like. It's not super aggressive or like a 70s Marshall might be, and it's not really like really dark. It's kind of somewhere in the middle. It's to me kind of like the clean sound on it is a very balanced, warm, clean sound. It's not overly scooped, but it gets some good breakup. It's kind of like a very classic 60s Marshall-y rock clean sound, I guess.
Okay. Good.
And the overdrive sound, it's kind of a more hot rodded version of that. It can get pretty high gain. Some people, I think, if you're playing like extreme metal, may not be enough gain for you, but I would consider it high gain, and it's pretty I don't know, it's pretty balanced and sounding. I don't know. I think that's something that I really go for with my amps. I don't really voice things like overly super aggressive, bright, or like super dark. I have this tendency to try to make them work with like all sorts of different guitars and styles. So yeah, it gives them maybe a more kind of, so that one's kind of more like the rock, and it's fairly simple control wise. It's 2 channels, but it has a shared EQ and stuff.
Okay. Decolonizer.
Okay. Decolonizer is a little more aggressive. Thank you for not calling it the decolonizer, by the way.
Hey, you just said it though.
'Cause I know, but it took me about like 4 years before someone was like, "Oh yeah, decolonizer." I was like, "Oh my god, I can't." But
Come on.
as a side thing, I figured that if you read decolonizer as decolonizer, you're probably really metal, and you're probably into the fact that it's called the decolonizer.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not worried about it anymore.
Yeah.
But at first, it really bummed me out. I was like, "Oh no."
I mean, if it makes a sale, right?
Yeah, right. So that one is it's actually similarly voiced to the Hellhawk. It just can get more gain. It has some more features, like each channel has its own EQ, but I tried to keep it as simple as possible. It has a foot switchable boost that's variable, and it's a little bit more aggressive. It's a little tighter in the low end, and it's maybe has a little bit more like upper mid range aggression to it.
Okay.
That said, that amp could still work for lots of different styles, but that's the one that I recommend to people who are playing like metal and high gain stuff that don't want to use like pedals for any more gain.
Gotcha. I think you just said that tighter low end, that's where that comes into play for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the mother.
The mother. So I have this one. I just came out with the 3rd iteration of this one. This one has its roots in like a high watt. The newest version of it is kind of really it can still do a very it can do a high watt kind of clean sound, but it has a lot more gain available. And this one's really interesting because it's kind of the most chameleon of all the amps. Like I can dial in the mother to sound pretty convincingly like most of the other amps I make, but not the other way around. And it's because it has this really kind of effective EQ, and it has the most low end. It has a more you can make the low end tighter, but it's still a little bit looser. A lot of people use this one for like doom metal, and this one also is designed for bass guitar as well. So a lot of people use it for bass.
Gotcha.
And
Okay. How about the street
it's hard to
sweeper?
describe. Yeah. The street sweeper is the one I had mentioned before. That one's cleaner. It actually gets pretty crunchy, but it's like it's kind of a more like vintage kind of power amp breakup to it when it does distort, and it has the special switchable reverbs, and it's just kind of a big open clean sound.
A lot of headroom.
Yeah, they all do. They all technically have the same amount of headroom. Some feel like they might break up a little earlier, compress, but they all do, I make all the models in 50, 100, or 200 watts. So
200.
Depending
Jeez
on that.
Louise.
That's pretty impressive. I was gonna after we
know.
went through all the models, I was gonna mention that's
So
pretty
only-
amazing.
yeah, it's funny because if you were to play a 50 watt Hellhawk, for example, next to a 200 watt one, both distorted, it doesn't sound that much louder. And technically, it's only 6 decibels louder, but you can feel it more with the headroom. If you're trying to play really loud and clean, and you can hear that the most, on bass. If you've ever tried to play clean bass through like a 30 watt amp, it's really difficult with a
Right.
band.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. 200.
Yeah.
Earthling. Give us the Earthling.
Oh yeah, this is another newer amp of mine. This one's probably maybe the most unique tonally, just in that most people probably aren't as familiar with the sound. This one's based. I was lucky enough to get to borrow a friend's Mad amp, early 70s Mad amp. It's a GT 120, and this amp. I don't know. Are you guys familiar with the band Sleep?
Loosely.
Yeah, they're probably their most famous record is this hour-long song called Dope Smoker, and they famously used these Mad amps, and there's no pedals. It's just Les Paul tuned to C standard, cranked up through Mad amps and matching fan-loaded speaker cabinets, and they have this really. It almost sounds. When it's all the way up, it almost sounds like it's breaking, like kind of like a lot of like old Fuzzes do, how they compress a lot and they have a soft attack. But it's just a really gnarly, kind of fuzzed out, really mid heavy, but it's dark sound, like foggy. People describe it as foggy a lot. Sound when it's all the way up, and it's a pretty unique sound that you can't. I've heard some pedals that can emulate it okay, pedals that are based off the amp, but it's kind of like if that's the sound you're chasing, you can't really get it any other way, which is something I
That's
appreciate
cool
about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, but it also has a great clean sound that's really like Peter Green from early Fleetwood Mac. He was like a famous user of those amps, and yeah, that's what Oranges were based off of. The design, the original designer Mad Amp designed the early amps for Orange, but that's why they share a similar look and stuff. But yeah, so this is based off of that, and probably more than any of my other amps, I really wanted to make sure that it could really capture the exact sound of this old one, especially because I had one of the old ones, and then but it can do more stuff too. And I made a 2-channel version, which is 2 identical channels, so it's kind of like almost you have 2 Mad amps behind you, and you can switch between 2 of them like at different settings.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Question for you. So you're very much in the head world and more
Yes.
high power amps.
Yeah.
When you started making these, I'm thinking about chronologically. This is where the rebirth of everybody going to combos sort of started happening. Is that? I feel like
I think you're right.
You know what I mean?
I think
So
I just wasn't really paying attention to that that much.
well,
I was like, why all these guys want little amps?
yeah, but so along the way, as everybody was kind of going like, combo amp's the way to go because then you can play anywhere, or being constantly told to turn down and stuff. How obviously you didn't care, and you kept doing your thing, but did you feel anything from that at all?
Well, I always made sure all my amps have like really good usable master volumes. Like you can turn down the 200 watt one quieter than you could ever turn down a 5 watt non-master volume amp.
Wow.
And
Okay.
so I although you'd never really buy a 200 watt amp just to turn it down that much, you can totally do that and it sounds the same. So that's one thing I do. I definitely do consider being able to turn them down, because I've been in situations with before when I used non-master volume amps where I was totally frustrated and the sound guy was totally frustrated.
Yeah.
And or my ears were just tired, or I just wanted to play quietly little, you know, a little
Right.
quieter, and I couldn't. So, but yeah, I did notice it was definitely I started Science in 2009 as like a company, and I did notice that um it was definitely like a big boom in like small boutique amps. And I just kind of I appreciate a lot of little amps like that, but I just kind of figured there's so many of them. There wasn't that many people making, you know, boutique 200-watt amps. So I kind of figured, oh, these are the kind of amps I personally like and play, and maybe this will be my niche, kind of.
Yeah. Well, you also, whether you planned on it or not, seem to get ahead of the curve of all of the doom and all, you know, the great insurgence of that.
Yeah, I mean, I've always really liked music, like really loud,
Yeah.
heavy music since I was really young. I mean, among other things, but that was always stuff I appreciated, and I always like loved amps more than guitars or pedals. I just really, really loved amps. So, and like I always played big loud amps, so it was just like kind of natural for me to
Yeah.
make amps like that.
Well, these are. I'm really glad that you just kind of went through and explained all these things. And now, one thing that I'm curious to know: these are extremely well-made amps. What enabled you to make these amps as good as they are? Do you have a background in electronics? Are you just naturally adept at it, or?
I'm just crazy. I don't know. Like I don't know. I just like I just became really obsessed with amps, and I just wanted to make the best amps I could possibly make. And I don't have anyone that I work with, a cabinet builder who's super talented. He's actually the nephew of the guy that I apprenticed for years and years ago. His name's Jeff Moreau, and he's my cabinet builder. And he has crazy attention to detail. And I'm really lucky to be working with him. But as far as like the quality of the amps, I don't know. I think it's just in my personality. I'm just really like high attention to detail, and I make all the amps myself. You know, I design them and build them all myself. I don't have anyone else building amps for me. So I take my time, and I just make sure that everything is right. And yeah, I don't know if there's more of a reason. I guess, yeah. I'm just
Did you
kind of
have
like pedantic.
like did you take any electronic classes,
Oh
or
yeah.
like how did you?
No, I just learned on my own. I yeah, I just learned from books and online, and
Wow.
I just like literally did that like all day, most days for many years. I still do read about amps and read schematics and all the time.
All right, there's another one. Yet another one. Just I don't know. I don't know how to do this. I just did it. And look where you are. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and there's so many people like me. Like a lot of my peers, some of them have electrical engineering backgrounds, but what a lot of people will tell you, especially with tube amps, is that you don't learn that stuff in electrical engineering school. I mean, tube technology is so outmoded at this point. I mean, they may cover it for a few hours in class, like the history of electronics or something, you know. Of course, some of the concepts carry over, but that's not really stuff you can learn in school anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just even having a basic understanding of what all the things do. I think there's a lot of people that endeavor to build these, and they couldn't tell you what a capacitor does, or what a
Right.
diode does.
It
or-
capacitates.
That works. Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
a
That works
resistor,
both
It's
ways.
like they know what it looks like, and they know that they have the part in front of them, but
Yeah.
they couldn't explain what that's doing. So I think
Right,
that's the
and they
difference between assembling and creating. Maybe.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, audio stuff is audio design is really interesting in that way. That's why I think I've been designing amps or electronics, especially music electronics, keeps people so interested for so long, is because there's the artistic side of it, and then there's the electronics, the science side of it, no pun intended. And so you kind of like you can dive so deep in both directions. Yeah.
All right. Tony, I think you got a last question for Alex here. It's the most important one of all.
So, how did you come up with the name?
Oh,
Science
okay. It's kind of a cool story. So, you guys probably in bands or have played in bands and stuff, and it's like pretty hard to think of a band name. It can be pretty torturous. So,
Yes.
Especially where lawsuits are involved and
Yeah.
cease and desist.
yeah, so it can be. It's hard. I didn't want to call the amp company Gaziano. My last name didn't really have a good ring.
Say it
to
the right way. Gaziano.
Gaziano. But it's still, I don't know. I don't know. I never really liked calling amp. And no offense to anyone who does this because it's totally classic and a cool thing to do. But I never personally wanted to name it after myself,
Right.
So I originally started the company like in the very beginning with my friend Scott, and he had a 5-year-old son, and we were trying to think of names, and we just literally one night were at the kitchen table and said, "Hey, what do you think we should call the amp company?" He said Science, and they're like,
That's awesome.
That was my
So we just
favorite
kept
subject
it.
in school,
Yeah, so it's named after a 5-year-old.
Well,
It kind of fit because it's slightly tongue in cheek because tubes are not really high science anymore.
right.
Yeah.
So. One of the I rarely share personal stuff, but
Really? You always share.
I don't. Not about nothing beyond me.
Oh, okay.
So I have a photo of one of my daughters who at the table when she was maybe about 5. She was just a super interesting character, just like kind of out there, like just not weird, just out there, right? And she held her arm up in the middle of dinner, and she had a fork on her arm, like sideways, and her eyes were really huge, and I don't know why when you're a young father, a young father, you always have a camera ready, always. And on her arm, she's got this fork, and she's looking at it, and her eyes, she's just kind of freaking out. She goes, "This is science." And I have this snapshot of her, and it's like one of my favorite pictures of all time because she was so, I don't know why that was science, but she was convinced that she was amazed at the science of a fork sitting on her arm. It was amazing. So.
Wow.
So it's funny because every time I see that amp, that's all I can think of is my daughter
That's
with
cool.
a fork on
Yeah,
her arm.
it's funny
Fork on
seeing
her
that,
arm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways,
On this week's Proud Father
Yeah.
podcast.
I might start one of those. You never know.
So, in addition to all the amp heads that you have, I noticed there's also quite a bevy of both guitar and bass cabinetry.
Oh yeah.
I mean, my personal favorite one was the 6x12 guitar cabinet.
Oh, that was for Cody actually, Cody Lane.
Oh, was it really?
Jeez, really?
Yeah, we've made a few, but he had the most recent one. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
He's the man. He is.
And,
He's a good
you,
fan of ours.
Are you mostly
That thing's
like Celestion and Eminence loading on your cabinetry?
I was using Eminence for a long time, but I've a few years ago I switched to Celestions, and I pretty much stick to 3 different ones. There's a newer one called the Redback, and Vintage 30, and a Creamback, which is like a higher powered greenback.
Yep.
I pretty much stick to those 3. I'm just so used to the sound of Celestions, and they just sound perfect to me. So I don't mess around too much with other speakers. There's already so many variables. I just try to stick to just these speakers.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Outstanding. Well, Alex, thank you so much for sharing all this about your science amps.
Oh yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, it's been really great getting to get that backstory, getting to know you a little bit better, and hopefully everybody else out there has a greater appreciation for what you're doing.
Yeah,
Jared?
thanks everyone for listening.
Yeah, you bet.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to say that now it's time for our little thing called Would You Rather?
All right. Variant there. You got the warble. You got the DD6 going on there.
Yeah, the Jared DD6.
Well, whatever you want to think. So, would you rather comes today from James Pegler. Would you rather, as your only gear options for the rest of your life, use the first electric guitar that you've ever owned in the amp of your dreams, or use your first amp and the guitar of your dreams?
This is a no-win situation.
It isn't a zero win for me.
For me.
Unless you came from a golf course family. It's
Golf course family.
a live on the golf course family, yeah. Because, they usually have a few bucks.
Yeah.
They start their kid out with a
dad's a
USA Les Paul custom.
My dad's a podiatrist.
Marshall JCM 800.
Yeah, my dad worked at a General Fireproofing, which is made cabinets and office equipment.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
My dad was a brick salesman.
Yeah.
Yay.
Wow. Heavy. Thanks. I appreciate that, Alex. Okay. So this is a tough one. This is a really, really tough one. Just again, really quick. First guitar and amp of your dreams, or first amp and guitar of your dreams. This is a great question. Really, really great question. Tony Baloney, do it.
I mean, you sure I can't use my second amp that I had?
Yes,
'Cause
that's
I
not what the question
would definitely
says.
go
I
with
think
that.
we pretty much laid out the rules,
All right. Well,
which you try to break every time.
I like to bend the rules.
That's
That's what I'm here for. I think as a practical matter, I'm going to go with the Dream guitar and my first amp. And the very first amp that I owned, and I knew nothing about amps at the time, but there was a company in California called Acoustic.
Yeah.
And I had an acoustic, it was like a 150 or something like that. It was 112 combo, all solid state. And the only reason I bought it is a buddy of mine had a big acoustic bass rig. It had the big scooped or folded horn, like a 215 cabinet,
right.
and it was like acoustic 370 or 270 head. And it was good. So I said, well, this amp has to be pretty good too. And, it was adequate, but it was a solid state amp. And it was not, I quickly shifted over to something different. But all that being said, I think I could do more with a good guitar into a amplifier than vice versa. So that's what I'm going with.
All
Dream
right.
guitar into the acoustic 150 or whatever it was called back then.
Okay. Jared?
Well, good old Tony Baloney, I'm going to agree with you on that one. Only because, I thought back, and it took me a while to compute what was really my first amp that I owned. Because I had borrowed many amps. I had my dad's PA I had to use for the very first time that I had an electric guitar, which was a Harmony. It was a half pint, catalog special, and it's not adequate. But the first amp that I owned, that was mine, was like a PV, similar to the PV Classic model, but I think it was I'm going to say it was the solid state version, and it had the really cool, not the flanger, but the
Phaser?
the phaser on it. Yeah, the one that I recently I bought another one just because it was my first, and I really love that phaser sound on that PV amp. So I'm definitely going to go with the Dream guitar, which would, I have no idea what that would be. Probably, Jimmy Page's number one. That's my dream, just to have it. Because I want to see how that neck feels on that guitar, because he had it shaved up at Lay's. Actually, I think Joe did, but yeah, I'm gonna go with Dream guitar.
All right.
First amp.
Good choice.
All right. Alex, how about yourself?
This may be obvious, but I think I'm gonna go with first guitar and Dream amp. I don't know what my dream amp would be. Maybe one that I haven't built yet. Maybe we'll never build. But the guitar, I can't even remember what it was called, but it was a really cheap like import guitar. I had it when I was like 10, and I've always tried to remember the name because I would like to get one again. It was really early 90s looking. It was kind of stratish kind of thing, but it was all black. I wish I could remember what it was, but I reckon it was probably a fine, okay guitar. I could definitely make it work through a Dream amp, I think.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Todd, what about you?
Well, if one thing that I've learned through gigging and recording is like you can pick up just about any guitar, but their amp is going to greatly affect what's actually happening. And so I'm going to go with my very first guitar, which was a piece of garbage, but it was like a I think there was it had to have come from a department store. I got it from a friend. I traded him a skateboard for it. We talked about it before. But it was like a Les Paul like clown burst kind of a thing. And I'm pretty sure it had a bolt-on neck. It was flat top. It wasn't, card. It's garbage. But my first amp was a PV Special 130, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but it certainly, if I'm going to have anything, I can do more to modify a guitar than I can to make an amp sound better.
Well, that was not in
Yeah,
did
you're
not say
you're
that
not
in
allowed
the
to
instructions.
I'm saying I just said I can.
Who's the
I didn't
rule
say I was
bender now?
Going to. I didn't say I was going to. I just said I could.
All right, so we're 2 and 2.
Yeah. So and as far as the amp goes, it's the problem about doing the show is that I have no idea what there's so.
There's lots of
the exposure
fantastic
to all
choices.
the amps. I think like right out of the gate, two that have me intrigued are the Maz 18 from Dr. Z, and also that Delisle, his Marshall, sort of his take on a Marshall. I thought that was pretty intriguing. So, but I mean, I could go down the list of like, are those my dream amps? No, they're not, because I haven't played them, to be perfectly honest. But
Have you dreamt about them?
No, I don't dream them. I can't. I would never go to sleep if I dreamt about all this stuff. But that said, it would have to be some version of a heck of a lot better amp,
Yeah.
So that's where
that's cool.
That's what I'm doing. Yeah.
No, well, I think
That was a great question.
That is
James
actually a really
Pegler.
good. It makes you think. It makes you think.
Yes, I'm thinking. Tony Baloney, let's
Yes.
thank some people.
So at this point of the show,
Yes.
there's a special group of people that we like to thank.
Yes.
There are executive producers. And someone driving down the road right now might be saying, what's an executive producer? How do I become one? I have to know. So go over to patreon.com/the guitar knobs. You can see many different levels in which you can participate. Each level comes with its own bevy of fine little prizes and
Yeah, I just shipped a
rewards.
whole bunch of them out.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Excellent. And, there's different levels. But the top level is the executive producer level. And even one step above that we have just dubbed them our new grand poobahs.
Yes, poobah. It's
Poobahs.
a poobah. It's in a poobah. It's a
No,
poobah. That's not an animal.
Multiple
It's a poobah.
poobahs.
Yes, poobahs.
Poobahs.
Pooh Bear?
Pooh Bears.
Yes, poobahs.
So go to patreon.com/the guitar knobs. Check it all out. Jump on in. Do what you can.
Yeah, let's do that right
Every
now.
little bit helps.
Let's jump into thanking these
Let's
folks.
do that. Well, before we do that, in
Oh, is there
addition to all
something
that
more?
great stuff,
There is.
Jared, what happens?
You get to have your name read on the thing.
The executive
right.
producer level and the new grand poobah level
Yes.
get their name read on the thing.
Let's do it.
So let's start with a tip of the old fez to our grand poobahs. Jonathan Jerusik, Corey Nigro, David Kaminga, Cody Lane, who we heard from earlier
right.
today, Cody Foster, Sean S. and Tommy Manasco. And then let's talk about our executive producers.
Do it.
They may not be grand poobahs, but they're still very important
Still grand
to us.
to us.
How about Tom Barazin, Martin Cliff, John Daly, Chris Carney, Darren Gregory, Doug Christ, Michael Van Zant, Ken Sayers, Brian Robinson, Michael Senchuk, Stefan Lamb, Johnny Knowles, Anthony Lathrop, John Anglin, Tyler Bray, Brad Partridge, Tig Harmon, Chris Heidel, John Esterly, Tim Nowak, Doug Gann, Justin Jones, Steve Keys, and Brett Alexander.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Man,
we
oh
really
man.
appreciate it.
Thank you so very much.
Yes.
This is truly helping our efforts here to bring you the best show that we possibly can.
Truth.
Alex, where can people find you again?
They can find me on Instagram at Science Amps and Facebook, Science Amplification, and my website, scienceamps.com, has all the info about all my amps and how to order and sound samples and more videos coming soon, stuff like that.
Awesome. And your band name one more time?
Oh, yeah, Dream Decay.
Dream Decay.
Shameless plug, as they say.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Take it. Hey,
Take
I know how that is.
any plug you can.
Plug the heck out of it. Tony Baloney,
Yes.
where can people find you in the 10-cent version?
In the 10-cent version,
Yeah.
go over to
Gonna-
pickguardian.com. You can see some things that I have available for order online. Shoot me an email if you need something special or you don't see it on there.
Well,
I do just about anything.
You specialize in special.
I specialize in special.
Yes.
Because that's my
Every time
specialty.
I go over there, I'm like, wow, look at this. This is cool. This would look amazing on blank guitar. It's true.
There you go.
It's a true story.
So yeah, whether it's special material or if you're doing different pickups or if you whatever, arch top guards, you name it, I do it.
Yeah.
If you want to see some of the projects that we talk about from time to time, go over to Instagram and Pick Guardian and the number 1.
All right, Jared.
Well, if you guys need any pickups, new pickups that are old looking or whatever, BrandonWongPickups.com. Just give me an email if you don't see anything on the site that you need. I could probably do it anyway. And
Yeah.
Let's say you have an old Ken arch top that you want a mini humbucker put in.
yeah,
He's the guy.
I do all sorts of little sneaky
He
things.
underplays
like
how good they are. Truly.
that.
Outstanding
Thank you.
pickups.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, you can shoot me a message, Todd at theguitarknobs.com, or you can shoot me a DM on Instagram at guitarknobs. We would love to hear from you. Share your stories, share what you think about the show, share how the show might be affecting you, good or bad, I suppose.
My wife left me. I've been listening to the
Oh,
podcast
geez.
nonstop.
And if you got a would you rather, send it to us for Pete's sake.
Oh, would you
We
rather
love 'em.
or a 4 on the floor?
Yeah.
We like hearing all that stuff.
All right. Great, ginormous, big thanks to our new friend, Alex Gaziano.
Oh, thank you.
You are more than welcome. Everybody, make sure you go check out Science Amps and see what more you can learn about this and get your hands on one. Everybody have a fantastic guitar week and subscribe!
Yeah.
Are you an air sign as well?
I don't know.
I'm a Gemini.
He's full of gas. So
No, I'm.
Tony Bonoli.
I am the
Pouncing
interrupter.
We
Thanks
had
for having
quite
me.
a few refresh.
There it is.
is.
Perfect. That was. You had my hand on the knob there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, easy.
easy now.
Okay.
Well, that's it for these knobs. Please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/theguitarknobs. Visit our website at theguitarknobs.com for all of our past episodes, 4 on the Floor blog, and other good stuff. You can connect with us on social too at our Facebook page and share your gear and stories on our Facebook group. Also, be sure to check out our Instagram at Guitar Knobs. Catch you next time.